Greetings, I'm Mark Riley, and welcome to the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where the world's musical traditions come to life. The Washington Tattoo is an international music and arts festival coming to the Washington, D.C. metro area. Our podcast explores the lives and stories of world-renowned musicians, dancers, producers, choreographers, artists, educators, arts advocates, and those who serve our cultural communities at large. For more information and donations, find us at www.thewashingtontattoo.com. Now please enjoy this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast, sharing the power of the arts, one story at a time. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast. I have an extraordinary panel of folks that are on this call today. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to have a little bit of a different format here. We're going to call this Tattoo Talks. And this one will focus on the drum major. And right now we have three illustrious drum majors standing or sitting before you. Philip Ruche is a dear friend of mine. He's part of the Three Amigos. We have a brotherhood of friends. He is with the Swiss Army Central Band and is the head drum instructor for the Swiss Army. So Philip, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Next, we have Morris Brown, goes by the Mo Brown alias. Mo is one of the most accomplished drum majors for the UK Army. Drum major, the Irish Guards, the Scots Guards, and the Coldstream Guards, and a whole bunch of other groups as well. But Mo is joining us from Northern Ireland in Belfast. Mo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Mark, absolute pleasure. Jim, Philip, great to see you guys.
And lastly, right now, we have Sergeant Major retired James McGarity, Jim, of Pershing's Own, and honestly, a bio that we'll get into that is one of the most inspiring biographies I have ever seen. So, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Mark, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be with you guys again. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So, honestly, with this vast experience sitting here on this call, definitely want to dive into your experience, but, you know, really why a tattoo is such a special event and why it means so much to so many people who just experience what a tattoo is. So, I mean, from the very beginning, and I don't know, we want to start this off. If Jim, if you want to start this off, you know, you have an experience with the performers. There's a lot of ensembles that are a part of the tattoo. I mean, can you just recall some moments talking about the tattoo rehearsals and the ensembles that are there, and like, how do you get those folks to work together?
You know, Mark, putting together a tattoo is like a big puzzle. It's got a million pieces laid out on the table. And it's our job to put those pieces together if we can, as quickly as we can, and make sure that the parts are all in the right places. So working with small teams helps out quite a bit. I know that we're on the tattoo, not only one country is involved, you've got 3 or 4 countries possibly, and helping to know their language or their highs and lows, it helps out a lot to work with them that way.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, anyone else, I mean, from Philip or Mo, I mean, when you're talking these international groups and the language barriers and things like that, I mean, what are some of the experiences that you've had?
Yeah, I think if we are talking from language barriers, that's on one part, it's difficult to have a connection, to have a conversation, but on the other side, you have the musical language and it's universal. And as long as you're standing in the arena and playing for example, the music for the finale or for the opening ensemble, so there are no more questions. So it's just music, the universal language. That's a very beautiful moment. Even if you're coming from all over the world, if the music is starting, then everybody understands each other.
Yeah, and Mo, I think there was an interesting time in Estes Park, Colorado, where you guys met the old guard for the first time. Were you with the Irish Guards then?
No, Mark, I was with the Scots Guards at the time. That actually might have been the really hot year out there that I earned the nickname Semper Furious from the US Marines. It got hot and sweaty one day, and we had to go quite old school on the tattoo drum major at the time, Joe Streeter, I think his name was. Yeah, no, that was fun. Like the guys have said, it's a universal language, Mark. Um, Working with Jim the first time, and I always introduce Jim as the legendary Jim McGarry because in my eyes, he is. I was quite a late starter to the tattoo scene. I was already 2/3 into my career before I actually got to take part in one. So had to learn very quickly, had to learn on the job, and didn't have a better teacher than Jim.
No,
Thank you. Well, appreciate that.
that's fantastic. I mean, so what are some things that you felt, Mo? I mean, watching, maybe if I could use the term, maybe as an apprentice, you know, watching Jim kind of work through things. What are some things that you noticed about that experience?
Well, just watching the fact that, you know, in the UK, I would literally turn up at Horse Guards Parade or Wellington Barracks outside Buckingham Palace with a parade cane or a mace. It was the first time that I had really seen the use of other accoutrements such as tape. Drum major using a pace stick, not necessarily done by drum majors in the UK, and all those other wee tidbits that Jim brought to the party to bring, you know, you've done a Virginia tattoo yourself, Mark, you know, you can see how quickly things do have to get brought together. And it was the fact that for me, Jim had thought outside the box, didn't just do everything the way that a drum major would traditionally do it. And yeah, there was very clear instruction. The tape was on the floor, the instruction was there, and more importantly, every note was watched, every rehearsal was watched, and Jim had learnt not just his part of the show, but everybody else's part. So if a mistake happened, he was able to pick up just as much as what he was doing at the front of the mass bands as what the junior drummer in the pipes and drums, the junior clarinet player at the brass and reed bands would pick up as well. So that for me was the highlight of my first tattoo. Working with Jim really was, learned so much.
Mo, thank you very much for saying that. You got some big shoes for me to fit into, but it took a long time. I mean, I was 31 years drum major, and my first 2 or 3 years were not like that. I was learning from a book, and I was learning from all you guys. I would copy the Royal Marines, I'd copy the Scotch Guards, I'd copy a lot of people. So, and my uniform, you can see that was pretty much copied as well. But you have to be that, to pull off the show that they wanted me to help pull off, I had to do that and to do the best I could, because you guys set the pace. You just do it every day.
Well, and a question there too, because I think there definitely are different styles. And you know, Philip, what would be your perspective on, like, did you copy someone? Did you have a mentor or someone that you kind of were an apprentice to when you were learning?
Yeah, the former drum major from the Swiss Army Central Band was my good friend Patrick Robertel. He was also the drum instructor, drum teacher, and so he was just passing over the maze to me and said, "Okay, Philip, now it's your turn. Just try it out." So that was the first step. So there was no real apprenticeship you can do, and then I think I was growing on each tattoo performance, as Jim explained before. So you're going to for example, to Basel Tattoo, and then you see all the stars, the senior drum majors from UK there, for example, Coldstream Guards and all these famous bands. And then you're just standing there and say, okay, I'm here from a small country, Switzerland, and I'm just learning from you. And I try to copy the holding the mace, giving the signs, and then doing like a hybrid form in Switzerland. So it's also like you hold the mace. It was I'm copying a bit the British style of holding the mace. It's not there's no Swiss style. If you're just talking from the mace, there's we were influenced a long time from the French, French style, but I try to make like a hybrid form, French, UK style. But it's looking, copying, and making experience. And sometimes that's very hard. Yeah, it hurts because you're doing mistakes, and then you're learning by your mistakes, and then you're doing better and better.
Wow, that's incredible. So, I mean, Jim, when you would say you were starting to put this idea together of what you wanted it to look like, was that well received by the US folks? I mean, you were trying to take this idea of being a drum major and you had to kind of craft it on your own. Was there any challenges to that?
Well, you know, prior to me being the drum major, there was a former drum major named Howard Pond. And Howie was the first drum major to ever have a mace, bearskin, and baldric. He was taught directly by the Scots Guards, I believe, for about a week. Colonel Laboda, Sam Laboda is the guy that hired him to be the drum major. He was a drummer. I have to say this, I am probably one of the only drum majors in the world that's not a drummer. I'm a trumpet player. And so on the one hand, I like that because I see different notes as opposed to, you know, y'all's notes in the drum department. And I know how to edit music, I know how to play music. And when someone doesn't play it correctly, I know how to tell them how to fix it. So that's good too. But no, the style was Army style, old baton method when I first got there, almost. So they wanted me to go out, learn something. I was sent over to England as well. I spoke with a guy named Harry Dunn, long time ago, drum major. He spent a week with me. And it was pipes and drums type signals and things. But I caught on, and then I brought it back, and I had to use certain parts of it that worked for me, and other parts I couldn't use at all. We'd never use a slow march in the Army band. And so that's one item that we would not use. However, it took a while. They wanted me to do a video, and I had to use a couple of old signals, which I hated, but it was for the entire US Army. And so I'm going, well, okay, fine, I'll try it. And it was difficult. It worked. And they kept it for about 5 or 6 years, I believe. I think that the drum majors got better, but it was still, I look at them now and they're doing Marines, Army, US Marine style, which I don't think it should be in the US Army style. So, but who's to ask me now, you know? So anyway, but it was difficult, but it worked. When I was there, it seemed people were contacting me quite a bit. And I had to go do a couple of classes with some drum majors, and I thought that was really good. Jenny Pace was one of them who invited me down to see her drum majors. And she was a drum major prior as well. But she, you know, they didn't like certain things like the forward march or the mark time or the signals. And so I said, well, fine. Purging zone's going to do it. The rest of you can do what you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I think somebody has to decide what is going to be the new tradition. That's something that we talk quite a bit about with a hybrid style, because I know for a fact when Philip Rucce decides to retire, he will have created a hybrid style that someone is watching and someone's going to try to copy that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a question I have there too. So, I mean, Mo, when you were going through, there is a drum major school, I believe. Is that correct? And what are some things that happen there?
Well, Mark, I actually had the privilege. I spent, before I went to the Coldstream Guards, around about a year as the staff drum major at the Army School of Ceremonial. And part of my role there was to actually teach the drum majors course. But ironically, they had never taught musicality on it. They taught the drill movements. So essentially they could bring any soldier from any band, any corps of drums, any pipes and drums, and even somebody coming from a rifle company who had never been on a musical ensemble in his life, and run them through this course. Now, from what I learned from Jim in Virginia, the musicality for me became everything. So my legacy that I left behind was to actually bring the musicality element to that drum majors course. It's only 2 weeks long. It's real intensive. And at the end of it, you're just expected to pick up a mace and go and lead any musical ensemble in the British Army. Now, that's okay if you come from that background, but there's many of guys come through that organisation that will do that course. not coming from a background and never lead an ensemble ever again. They literally do the course to do the course. But yeah, that's a legendary place. That's one place that every drum major has to go through and tick that box. And a big part of that is that there's a standardization part of it there, that you do senior drum major drill, and you will take turns. Whatever band you have for your pass-off parade, everybody will take that as an individual and be assessed. But then also you will then be assessed on the senior one. It's aimed at the foot guards because on Her Majesty's birthday parade, Trooping the Colour every year, we will have between 3 and 5 drum majors at the front of the mass bands, and that's what that course really helps with. The fact that you can just club together 5 guys and everybody knows exactly what's happening, and speeds up the whole rehearsal process for the birthday parade.
Interesting. So the question I have too, yeah, Philip, go ahead.
I think you mentioned two very important facts. The fact that you have to understand also the music is very important on my point of view, because you can learn all the maneuvers, you can learn all the maze handling and all that stuff, but one point you arrive that you have to realize, okay, what's going on behind me? So feel the phrases, feel the end of a phrase. So stop at the end of this phrase and not at the end, in the middle of a phrase. Makes a lot sense, and is also much easier for the musicians at the end. So if you're stopping at the end of a phrase, every musician, it's logically, okay, so they're expecting, okay, he will stop here and not here. And that's what I'm also teaching to my students when we are talking about drum majoring. It's okay, first you learn the maneuvers, but then listen to the music and also do the maneuvers in relation to the music. That's very, very important. And in Switzerland, there was no school available where I can have an exchange with another drum major talking about what should I do in the finale, in the Basel Tattoo. So I had to look to other countries. I had to do connections with Sweden, for example. My good friend David Lindberg, we're having a lot of exchanges, and as I mentioned before, the bands from UK. So they are, yeah, we learned by other nations and not just inside Switzerland. That was not possible for me during this time.
So is there currently something that you're working with, Philip, now to kind of craft a school or some lessons or some kind of course?
Yeah, we just created, or Patrick Robotel created a book with all the maneuvers, with all the standards inside, and we are doing all relating to this. And also we were creating a DVD where you can see the maneuvers, because if just reading a book, it's not the real thing. But if you can see it on a DVD, it makes more sense. And the last point is you're doing workshops with civil groups within the army, and we are trying to spread out this knowledge also to the civil bands, that they learn how to do it and how to do it properly. Because Patrick Robotel was maybe also the guy who reintroduced the mace again in Switzerland, because in the years of, let's say, 1960s, the mace absolutely disappeared in the civil bands, not in the drum and fife community, but in the bands, in the brass bands, they disappeared. And so let's say in the beginning of the year 2000, so we reintroduced the mace again, and it's now a process. We are into a process to reintegrate the mace again to the civil bands also, but it's a lot to do, and of course not every conductor is happy about it and has to be convinced that maybe it's better to have a drum major on his side and not to be drum major and conductor in the same position, the same person.
Well, that's something interesting too, because I know, Jim, if we're doing a ceremony for, one of the U.S. dignitaries, or we're doing a retirement ceremony, Pershing Zone would come out and have the drum major as well as the officer, to conduct the group. And I'm not sure, does that exist in any other organization?
Yes. What happened, this is from the beginning of time, I'm sure. The officer or the director of music for the band would always be the head conductor, and it would be on every ceremony. And the drum major was just, who's the tallest person in the band? We can use this guy today, or put him out there. We're not going to do anything, go down the street from back. So the drum major's position was nothing really for a long, long time. However, Laboda and Gil Mitchell, who was the XO of the Army Band at the time, they actually created the drum major position. It was a sergeant major position, and the only one in the Army. Now, actually, there's one at West Point, and y'all the band over pipe and drum. So those three positions are the only three designated drum major positions in the U.S. Army. So, I mean, it was, it's sad in a way, because you don't have a person who can really spend weeks or years to establish what you need, because they pick somebody else for another job, and it's just, they didn't really think it was important, I don't think.
Right. Well, it's interesting now. We have a lot of conversations about, what's the future of military music? What does it look like? And especially with COVID right now, there's a lot of questions about, budgets and how many musicians do you need versus how many do you like to have, and all those types of things. And, you have in the U.S. Army, you have the 42 Romeos, which is the regular band, and then you have the 42 Sierras, which are the special bands. And the 42 Sierra model, where you can stay for an entire career in one place,
Right.
is really, I mean, it's unique for the U.S. military, but quite honestly, it allows that team to really hone the craft and get really good together. And I do see the benefit of, if you want to have a duty station, you want to move around, I
Yeah.
do see value in it. But
Sure.
even at the very best scenario, you have a group that molds together for a handful of weeks to maybe a couple months at a time, and then maybe a key person's now going to be redeployed somewhere else, and then you lose that person, and honestly, that's a valuable team member. So I mean, this discussion of keeping people more located together for longer periods of time
Yes.
allows the craft to be built. And I mean, if you go back to the history of drum majors, which I think is interesting, with the lead drummer, the drum sergeant being the drum major, and then that kind of being taken away, where now you have a drum sergeant or a pipe major, and then you have an official drum major being a position, now does allow that leader to really get to connect with that band and those troops to get the best out of them. But if they only have that team together for a handful of months, how effective is that?
No, it's not effective. You have to be very careful, but it's a psychological position in a way with the people, and it's a family affair, really. But you know somebody for 10, 15 years, you can say, look, this is what I want, and they go do it. And that's all you got to say. And they're all pros.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up too. I mean, a level of trust, right? So the drum major gets the best out of their people when the people trust the drum major. And I've seen all of you at different points in different careers, whether I realize it or not, but you've gotten the ability to command presence, and people trust what you're saying to them so that they follow you and actually execute what you're telling them to do. So I'd love if you guys can kind of expand on that. What are some experiences that have helped you build that trust with those ensembles?
I'll go with this one. So whenever you get posted into London District as a drum major there, you're actually tasked centrally. So not only will you work with the specific core of drums that you administrate on a daily basis, you'll also then work with the 5 brass and reed, or what we would call regimental bands. So that's up to 240, 250 musicians. You're a newly qualified drum major. It might be the summer months. You're on all week. You're doing changing a guard Monday to Friday. And Monday you've got the Grenadiers. Tuesday you've got the Coldstream. Wednesday you've got the Scots. Thursday you've got the Irish. And Friday you've got the Welsh Guards. And you have to learn to be confident, and it has to be done again on the job, on the job learning. And that gets built up over time. There is no trust the first time a drum major stands in front of an ensemble. No trust at all. even whenever you come in with a big reputation of previous experience, there's no trust at all, and that gets built up with what you've just been highlighting, Jim and Mark. Exactly right. Towards the end of my drum majoring career, I had 8 years at it. The first 3-4 years, as Philip alluded to earlier on, were tough. The last 4, I had built up the rapport with everyone, and it wasn't a bother at all. Anything could happen on the forecourt of Buckingham Palace, and that band would know that it would be okay because of the years that have been built up prior.
I love that. Philip, do you have, I mean, what are some things that you've had to do to build up trust with your units?
I think we have to know that the Swiss army is organized as a militia army. So it means, for example, if I'm working with my conscripts, they are together for 18 weeks doing their basic training, and then that's it. So, and in this 18 weeks, we are, for example, we are preparing for a presentation at Basel Tattoo. And there it was always interesting to build up, to explain the guys, okay, guys, in 5 weeks, for example, in 5 weeks, we will perform in Basel Tattoo, and you show the DVD from the last year. And everybody was, wow, we are absolutely not able to do this. And then you're like the father, like Puppy, and taking the hand of your musicians and say, I know the way. And if you trust me, and if you do exactly what I'm teaching you, we will do this. Just trust me. And that was maybe an experience. A musician came to me after the last presentation, after the finale in Basel. He came to me and said, thank you very much for this experience. This was an experience for a lifetime. But, and now the but was very funny. He said, I won't do it absolutely not anymore, because I was always dying in the arena every night because I have to play by heart. It was sweating, it was hot, it was so stressful. I won't do it anymore in my lifetime, but thank you for this experience. And I think that's it. So the musicians are there, having no idea what to do, and then you're just guiding them there and performing, and in the end all the emotions came out and they coming back to you. So that was my experience with the conscripts. On the other side, my experience with the central band, they were the a bit more experienced people, so maybe they had an experience from a former tattoo, but we are just together for 1 week. 1 week we are rehearsing for our, let's say, project Avance Tattoo or Basel Tattoo or Edinburgh, whatever. And you are absolutely, every minute is scheduled in this week, because you started with the music, you bring the music together, then you started with the drill, and after 5 days you're ready. Okay, let's go to the original venue and then bring the show together, and then you have another time for the premiere, and that's another kind of working together. So with the conscripts you have maybe a bit more time, but the people are unexperienced. In the central band, you have a very limited time with experienced people, but on both sides, it's a challenge. It's a challenge being the drum major, and I made a lot of mistakes, especially in the central band, because the time is so limited. You have absolutely there's no reserve, no spare time for any mistakes, because you're starting by point day to day, and there's no possibility to change something from one day to another day. So it's that's the challenge on my experience.
I love this. I'm learning a ton about this. This is awesome conversation. So here's another little rabbit hole on this, right? So if we're at a tattoo and you're organizing the rehearsals and we're trying to get people to play together, you're not always dealing with just military ensembles. So when you're dealing with military ensembles side by side with civilian ensembles, what are some of those challenges, and what does that look like?
Can I go first? In the Virginia tattoo, what we throw in the mix that a lot of countries don't do, I think, is we have a sit-down music rehearsal, probably the first day we get together, and get that behind us. Once there was a time when we did not have those, and it was just chaos. If people didn't have music, or they come in at the last minute, we're most standing and all this. So during that rehearsal time, we fixed the music. We fixed the vocalists that come in. They're probably civilians. If they have, I don't know, sometimes we work with another organization that would not be military, and they fit in, but you have to just walk them through it, like the little kid, you know, teach them how to walk. But I think that helps quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Mo or Philip, I mean, what are some things that you've come across in your experience?
For me, my last operational role was working in tactical intelligence in Afghanistan in 2013, just before my first Virginia International Tattoo. And I actually brought a lot of what I learned on the operational side of being in the armed forces to being a drum major, that you would appreciate some of our guys, particularly that first year, Jim, you'll remember out in Virginia, we had literally just taken guys, they weren't conscripts in Philip's case, but they had only just learned to drum the very, very basics while we were serving in Afghanistan. So the first time we met these guys was in Virginia. So you had 2/3 of the Scots Guards pipes and drums who hadn't seen each other in 6 months because we were spread all over Helmand province as drummers and pipers within the battle group. And then we Rob McCutcheon, who I handed over drum major to, he stayed behind and taught these new guys because we just didn't have a drum corps. So you were very aware of the fact that we're going to Norfolk, Virginia. We're going to play with some premier musicians. And from then on, Ross McCrindle and I, if we were ever going away somewhere, it was the tactical intelligence element to finding out as much we could about the people we were going to work with beforehand, learning their experiences, learning as much as we could. So whenever we then did hit future performances, you knew who to go to speak to. You knew you might have to do a wee bit of extra work with as a drum major. You knew who to stay away from at times. You know, so for me, that's where I learned. I took my military operational role and implemented that into the drum major scene.
Can I say one thing, if you don't mind, that Mo, you probably remember that once we started, you had a rehearsal with them on a Sunday, and then on Monday we had our sit-down rehearsal. Tuesday night we had a performance.
That's right, and that's the beauty of of Mr. Scott Jackson and the Virginia International Tattoo. You know, you don't fully appreciate how hard and how fast you're going to be worked. Yeah. But that Sunday, the more work it gets done on Sunday, essentially as unofficial rehearsals before the actual rehearsals start at the arena, that's where a lot of the work gets done. And Jim, I will never forget that day. You looked me up and down in that gymnasium at Norfolk Academy, I think it was, and said, "You're the drum major of the Scots Guards, everything will be okay," in the style that only you have. And that's where I grew up at that very, very moment.
I love that. So, I mean, going into that conversation, I mean, you have the idea of showing up, you have civilians, you have, in Philip's case, conscripts or people who are only there for a very short time, and then also balancing how those people interact with the other civilians. So, I mean, Philip, from your point of view, how does this conversation really affect, or has it ever affected you as the drum major of the Swiss Army Band or the Swiss Army Conscript Band?
You mean the collaboration of the military and civil bands, for example? I can talk maybe as my experience as arena master at the Avance Tattoo with Ludovic Frochot. Then one year there was a young brass band, a very, very talented brass band, high classified brass players, but they haven't done military service yet. So, but the funny thing was, it was not difficult. It's just I was trying to work with them like with normal people, like with my conscripts, because I'm also close with my conscripts. So I try to give them a good confidence, so they know, okay, what I have to do. And I think if you do the same with the civil people, and they know, okay, we are doing a military tattoo, so it's military inside. It's not a party we are doing here. It's also kind of military, so we have to be to march, we have to align, to adjust, and all that stuff. And somebody is giving orders, and you have just to do what the guy with the orders is giving to you, and you talk in a way it's normal. You're just, okay, I'm in uniform, yes, but I help you to create a nice show. Then my experience was always everybody was happy about it. Everybody was happy, and I think that's definitely also the kind of the militia army. So it's militia. So everybody knows, okay, normally as a young guy with 20 years, I have to do military service. We hope every good musician is coming to the military bands. So the army is very close. It's not like split it in army and non-army. So everybody knows, okay, maybe my father was in the army, my brother was in the army, so maybe that's the next step for me. And so it was very easy to work with them.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, because at that point you're discussing about generational service, right? So you have people who have served before you, people who have served around you, and they're getting to be a part where we talked about trust. And honestly, this is a psychological thing where now you've got to get into the psychology or even the sociology of these different people and where they're coming from. And so I think that's one of the really spectacular things, is that starts to build this camaraderie. And when you build the camaraderie of the people who are coming from the civilian world, the people who are coming from the military world, and you're putting this all together, there's magic that's actually happening in those moments. And you're setting this table for literally the world to come together in this one place. And it is what everyone dreams of when it comes to cultural diplomacy. So if we could, we're being joined right now by Drum Major Jeb Haig from the U.S. Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. Jeb, how are you?
I'm doing quite well. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Sorry I'm a few minutes late, but happy to be here.
Fantastic. All right. So we've hit on a couple things talking about trust and building the relationships, rehearsals, drum major history a little bit. But right now we're talking about building the team together that's on the tattoo floor. We have civilian groups, we have military groups. The drum major has to be trusted to get those groups kind of all together. But really what's happening now is you're starting to see the world coming together in one place all at the same time. And so we'll go around the horn for sure. But I mean, Jim, could you share some moments where you've seen kind of some crazy things where you're seeing two different cultures that you would never really expect to be together in that moment, and they're having the time of their lives?
The first time I put the mass bands together on the floor in their positions, first of all, I send out in advance a diagram of who's going to stand where. And they got different colors for different bands, so it should be no problem. But when you get there, the officer didn't give it to them till just now, and so it's kind of, there's 10 more minutes I've lost, you know. So anyway, when it's off, everything's said and done, they're in their positions. I get up on the podium and I show them the signals that are going to happen while they're on the parade with me. One of the things was, and this was more for the American bands, was we halt on the right foot. No. Yes, we halt on the right foot. Correct, Mo? British bands. Okay, so American bands halt on the left foot. Well, that just doesn't get it when you're out there. So they just had to do what I said do, you know. So I taught them all the signals, and it worked out pretty well. They didn't like it, but when you see the videos, they're fine. That's one little thing.
So yeah, a question on that. So I know for a fact when Jeb and I have worked together trying to go to different tattoos, you would see a group from Russia right next to a group from the United States, and then a group from the Ukraine, and a group from Switzerland, and a group from China. And you know, you have the language barrier. We talked a little bit about the music that brings people together, but I also see this kind of sharing of, you know, sometimes small little cultural gifts. And I would say from one of my most amazing experiences I was privileged to have was the Swiss hospitality and the level of detail brought into everything. There's a reason why it's a Rolex watch. And so I think when you're talking about those little things, I mean, I know Philip, you and I, when we've ever met, there's always this kind of exchange of a little bit of your culture, a little bit of my culture. But could you talk a little bit about that aspect of, what does a tattoo do for maybe the host nation's culture and how it's shared with, foreign participants?
Well, yeah, I think that's a very important fact from a tattoo. You said the hospitality. So I always, when we performed in Switzerland, I was always feeling like a bit the host. Even I was not part of the production team, but I felt, okay, if there is a problem with, I don't know, with the scores, with the food or anything, just come to me, and then we would try to play this card, this Swiss hospitality. And a special venue in Switzerland is definitely the cast bar in Basel, where everybody is coming together and having a beer and having this camaraderie. But it's unique. I think I've never seen this special moment on another place, because in Basel it's every evening, and it's sometimes very, very long. It can be very long. Other tattoos, they create something like a cast bar maybe one time, and it's also a big family. It's this family feeling. It's a family feeling, definitely. I remember when we performed at the Virginia Tattoo, there was the French band standing next to us, and then we realized, oh, they don't speak English. So the whole tattoo was ordering and telling all the stuff in English. And the Swiss guys, they said, okay, English, no problem, we understand. We stop on the left foot and right foot. But the French, they just ask us, excusez-moi, est-ce que vous pouvez faire une translation? And then the Swiss guys, we tried to build this bridge between the French band and the producers, and that was a nice card. And but definitely the camaraderie is so important. It's so important, but also inside the band, the camaraderie is important. So it's also a very important fact for a show. If you're just playing music together and oh, the guy right to me is playing good trumpet or is a good drummer, that's one fact. But maybe you want to know, about his family, about his kids, about his job, and then you create more a unique group, and that's I think for a performance as important as the music. I'm absolutely convinced that the audience is feeling if a band is also has a good chemistry under each other. That's very important fact. And so for us, it's also important that we having lunch together, we're having a beer together, even with the leaders. So we are very close to the band. The band knows, oh, that's the boss, but he's also having a beer with me. He is also having a chat with me, and that's something. This relationship is very important.
Definitely want to have Mo and Jeb talk to this as well, because I mean, Jeb, you really kind of broke the ice also with what the old guard was able to do in Ottawa a handful of years ago. Could you speak kind of on that, and like how did the Corps react, being out of country for the first time in so many years, and what did that do for the people on that job?
I think anytime that you can travel and collaborate with different bands is a good day, without question. And we definitely went for a long period of time where that wasn't possible. But we certainly did attend the Virginia Tattoo several times in there, so we weren't completely out of the loop. I always think it's super important for the leaders to get together, to have that lunch, to have that drink afterwards, and just start talking and get that communication flow moving. And then when you can, certainly in the off moments, get the members of the bands together and really be proactive and making sure that everyone's talking and understanding where everyone's coming from, because that's really what makes it special, especially when you do this tattoo circuit several times over and you recognize familiar faces and you can connect people and network together, because in the end, we're all doing a very similar job when it comes to military music, regardless of which uniform we're wearing. The stories are all the same. to some degree, unless if you're from Norway and it's minus 50 degrees and they're out there on a ski slope. But we all do something similar, and we can certainly joke about these crazy performances that we've done and all the different conditions and everything else like that. So yeah, I think in the end it's all about the collaboration and the networking and just really getting to meet people and then continue those relationships over the years.
Mo, and so you've spoken many times about the Virginia International Tattoo and the people that are there, and it's the people are just such great people. And so, I mean, that also helps facilitate if there is any uneasiness between, maybe a band is really a shy band and they don't really want to be a part of what's going on because they don't really know how to act, or maybe it's the band's first tattoo, which I've definitely seen that before too. And some groups come together and they're like, hey Jim, hey Bob, and immediately they know each other, but then maybe the band next to them has never done something like this before. So I mean, as you've done a lot of behind the scenes stuff, what are some moments that you've seen with that you kind of seen that kind of turn, and all of a sudden it becomes that this unfamiliar band now becomes kind of the part of the tattoo family?
Well, for me, I was still a drum major whenever I went through this experience. That the Scots Guards were doing an Irish dance scene with the local Virginia Irish dancers. Um, Kids, young people on the east coast of America, and all of a sudden they're standing, they're quite short, and they're standing beside these guardsmen with bear skins and the pipers with feather bonnets and stuff on. And the first rehearsal, as a drum major, and I'm still learning my trade at this stage, I looked and went, they are nervous, they are scared. They don't know what to do, they don't know what's expected of them. So we came off that first rehearsal, and I went to the leaders of the group, and then from every rehearsal and every performance then on, 5 minutes before we were due to be in the shoot, I would go and collect the kids and essentially walk them round and make them feel that very much they are very much as part of this scene as what the Scots Guards, pipes and drums experience, as the experience group of this particular scene is. So as I then transitioned from drum major to one of the assistant directors, it was something that I then tried to spend a lot of time with every group. There's certain groups, I mean, whenever Philip turns up with the Swiss, don't need to worry about them. You can go around, say hello, you know that they're fine. Whenever you guys are there with the old guard, don't need to worry about you, apart from the one time, Mark, that I had to drag you back in through the curtain, but we'll leave that for a separate podcast. Um, but yeah, you find the inexperienced groups, you find even the inexperienced people within those groups and try and draw them out. And if you can't do it at the arena, Philip summed it up beautifully. You do it at the Cast Bar, you do it on Granby High Street, you do it wherever you see those people for the whole duration of the tattoo. The more communication, the more collaboration you can do. By the Friday and Saturday evening, the prime shows, you're good to go.
And you just hit on something incredible, because those kids that just look up to those guardsmen, I mean, that is something that will be with them for the rest of their life. And for all of us, yeah, I mean, talking about.
Well, Mark, sorry to butt in.
Yeah.
I retired from the Army in 2019, so almost 2 years ago. And my very first year in Virginia, that very Irish dance group I was talking about, they had a young boy in amongst it. Now he's always up against it, being a young boy doing Irish dancing. I'm sure he gets it tight at school. And I went across, we spoke, he took a picture with my bearskin on, he held my mace, and I got a message within the last year, within about 7-8 months ago, that from that meeting, that kid has went on to become his high school drum major. Now, I'm just a wee boy from Belfast that one day wanted to aspire to be outside Buckingham Palace. And now, and all it was time. All I done was spend a wee bit of time with that young boy and said, this is what I do. This is how we're going to do things. It's great to work with you. I wish you all the best for your future. And now he's doing what we're doing. And that for me, I mean, I'm a soppy guy at the best of times. I cried whenever I received that message. Fantastic to see. And who knows, 2-3 years time, he could well be in one of your bands over there.
That's incredible. I mean, that's literally the whole purpose of why we do all of this, is that, someone had the faith in us to show us something, and then really passing that on to the kids and seeing the kids succeed. And Jim's probably laughing at us going, you bunch of kids. But I mean,
Well, yeah.
but I mean, that's the thing too, Jim. I mean, your legacy at Pershing Zone is incredible. And I know for a fact, talking to the different drum majors that have been around, a lot of people have looked up to you, and we are very lucky to have you here speaking with us today, because at one point, we were seeing you on the mark standing there as drum major and really owning that spot, and it was a sense of pride and a sense of honor, and we wanted to have that ability to then step up and try to do that ourselves. So I want to say thank you for your inspiration. And I don't know if you realized it, but people were always watching and trying to be like you.
Well, can I say this? That, when this is getting into the concert versus the tattoo, but what I want to say is that people, the audience, they listen with their eyes, if you know what I mean. And so that's why I was pretending when I was out there in that uniform. You pretend, and then you become what you're pretending to be, I hope, in a way. I know there was a lot of British people that didn't like me wearing the bearskin. I mean, I think the bearskin looked pretty good, actually, and some of them were afraid that theirs wasn't quite up to snuff, so they wouldn't mind. But no, I think that's one of the things why, I mean, I did open concerts up in the uniform, but people that go to concerts, they want to hear that music, and that's wonderful. But when they go to the tattoos, they still get that music, but they look on the floor and here's 1,000 people doing routines, and it's amazing what they see.
Well, and it's such an immersive experience. I think the concert idea of the performers are on the stage and the audience is separate from them, kind of in the crowd, is one thing, but to be surrounding the performers and being on the floor on the side of a trumpet player or a drill team member, it's a different experience.
Yeah.
And honestly, when you're talking about even the bear skin and everything else, this idea, the United States has always been a melting pot. It was a melting pot from the very beginning. And I love hearing what Philip is saying about this hybrid and bringing these traditions together, because I mean, that's how societies work, is we bring in the best of what other people do and we try to build upon that, and you find people open-minded enough. And then, we do have the United States Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps with bugles and a bear fur and an espontoon, which historically, was that 100% accurate? Probably not. But what's happened now is that we get to have an experience like Mo's talking about. And when we perform at a Twilight Tattoo or something like that, and these kids come up and they want to touch the drumsticks or they want to hold the bear fur, those kids now have seen kind of giants in their eyes, and then they're inspired to do the next step. And so I just think that's a really powerful statement.
Right.
Awesome. So I want to hit up a couple different things here. We definitely have, talked about inspiration and trust and things like that from behind the scenes. Also, some great things have happened when it comes to sharing the different styles of music. And so when you're talking about, the Scots Guards and the Irish Guards, and you're talking about the fife and drum corps, the pipe bands, the wind bands, the drill teams, there's some stuff I would love to hear from Jim, Philip, Jeb, and Mo about, what is happening when you see something behind the scenes of maybe some jam sessions or people going out afterwards and they're like putting music together that, you go back to the hotel and you're done for the night and you're exhausted, and you walk into the lobby of the hotel and people are just there enjoying themselves from all around the world, playing music, eating pizza, whatever it is. And I mean, there's usually something really special there. So if we can kind of sit on that for a moment, like what are some moments that you can recall from your experiences where you just saw music being shared amongst people from around the world, kind of behind the scenes?
Can I go first on that one?
Please.
Sorry to keep going first, but anyway, it brings to mind our first trip in 1988 when the Army band went to Japan. We were doing the show. We were opening the Big Egg in Tokyo. Now backstage, during the rehearsals and between rehearsals, there was a jazz saxophonist from one of the Japanese bands who couldn't speak a word of English. And we had a trumpet player in the Army Blues who was there, a guy named Fred Fredrickson, who's a great jazz player. The saxophone player was just noodling around on a tune. To jazz people, it's like, well, you memorize marches or whatever. So he was, and all of a sudden, Craig walked up and looked at the guy and says, "Can I join in with you?" And, oh yeah, sure. So he just, note for note, it was perfect. They never met each other ever, but they were playing this wild jazz thing, and it was just amazing. And when it was over, they were hugging each other and all this kind of stuff. So it multiplies, It does.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know, Jeb, you've had some moments. What are some moments you can recall?
I was just thinking of a moment over at the Virginia Tattoo, actually behind the scenes, and the French band was playing some jazz standards, and I had my fife there. And the thing with the fife is you end up in some pretty interesting keys. So they're playing along, and I was noodling around, and I was in the key of like D flat demolished or something like that. And I just find it really fun to kind of get in there and just play a few notes and have, our kind of niche instrument be recognized by other bands as something that is legit in some way. And I think that's really a lot of fun. And then a couple other ones, just being able to play with some of the bagpipers. That's always been pretty interesting, playing tunes like Black Bear or that kind of thing. Just at a cast bar somewhere around the world, just being able to join in. And we know the tune, we can play along, it's close, and it's a lot of fun. So really enjoyed that. And just seeing some of the expressions come out of the group that's playing, just completely unexpected. You would never see that coming, but just those special moments that come around in those tattoos are really just quite wonderful.
Yeah, a lot of people are always, well, you can't do that. Well, it just happened. I mean, Mo, I know we've had some awesome times, getting, fifers and drummers together, and you and I got to share a really great experience actually playing some tunes together at the Virginia Tattoo. And for me, one of the best behind the scenes moments was literally that, where, I'm growing up, Irish guy living in New York. And I remember meeting you on your first day at the job when you were taking over the Coldstreams and trying to balance out a guard mount. And you got these guests from the United States and everything else happening. And, we had talked, but we had always wondered about, like, we play music together, but we're always like organizing things. We're always kind of putting things together from an administrative point of view. And so for me, one of those moments was getting to play a couple tunes with you was just so powerful. And I just want to say thank you for having, the ability to mentally just go back and forth between, I'm running a show, I'm drum majoring or whatever, and I'm going to take a second to play a tune with you.
Mark, the pleasure's all mine, my friend. Probably anybody listening or watching probably doesn't know I don't have a musical qualification to my name. I aspired to be a musician, and without any formal qualifications at school, my only route into this fantastic lifestyle and that fantastic career that I had was to join an infantry battalion, drive an armoured personnel carrier, shoot a machine gun, and do all these other things. And then next thing, you're at Norfolk, Virginia, and I've done a wee bit of research on Jim. You went, how do I even introduce myself to this guy? Never mind, work with him for a week. So, a household division drum major is not a musician. He's very much an administrator and who tries his best to balance that out. So for me to get to play with you, and then ultimately in the role, and essentially the leader of this show, the tradition movement, the pleasure was all mine. I would just like to highlight one experience backstage from Virginia, and I actually think, Mark, I took you into it. Jim, you let me dress with you in your changing room, that you and Bob Zabo, the conductor, and Andy Carlisle was in there at the time as well. Now, the other year, Bob unfortunately fell and broke his leg. And I don't know his formal title, but it was a conductor came in called Bart, ex-US Marine. And Bart didn't exactly know the score and the protocols of, being that senior conductor and that being your changing room. Now, there was a few guys opened a bottle of rum, I won't mention their name, but I finished with McCrindle and McCutcheon. And the singer that year was a guy from the Royal Regiment of Scotland, Dougie Anderson. And Dougie's a fantastic singer. And a Keeley broke out. And whenever I say Keeley broke out, Dougie's singing, the rum's flowing. Now, bear in mind, this is mid-show. This isn't pre-show or after-show. This is mid-show. This is whenever people should be starting to focus in on the finale, and the Keeley's in full swing. So I walked out. I think I actually went to grab you, Mark, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Brought you in, and somehow a double bass player from the US Air Force had made an appearance and is now basing in the middle of a Scottish Keeley. We had a glass of rum, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Now, had Bob have been the conductor, it wouldn't have happened. Nobody would even get into the changing room. Never mind open a rum or have a drink or a Keeley. But that for me was my backstage takeaway moment of that year, seeing how quickly things can escalate, and seeing a jazz man from the US Air Force, playing Scottish music on a double bass was thrilling.
Yeah, and I remember there was a very young pipe band drummer that was there as well, and he was like an up-and-coming 13-year-old who was just really, he was on point. And it was, of course, like people were thinking, oh, rum or whatever, and it was very contained, very, very responsible, and it was just that idea of really bringing the tradition to life. And when you can see a tradition, a deeply rooted tradition with Kaylee, and then all of a sudden jazz comes in and rudimental drumming comes in, and all of this coming together, again, you can't really believe your eyes, and it's so powerful to see that. And I know with this, we have the lifestyle of Zoom throughout COVID, and it's like one of those kind of almost heavenly pictures of live music, people being innovative in the moment, creating and comping and just making things happen. It's been one of those things I can't wait to get back to. And to go to Philip, we've had some incredible moments in talking about, drumming behind the scenes, putting repertoire together that can be Swiss, can be American, could be pipe band. And we've had some great moments together. So if you could take a second to share just some of your behind the scenes memories, that would be fantastic.
Well, yes, my behind the scenes memories are especially on the year in Basel when the old guard was there, because you, Mark, you were the person who started to show me how easy it is to bring together drummers from different nations, because until then I was always a bit shy. I said, okay, well, Swiss drumming style is maybe unique, it's maybe too unique, it's maybe too extraordinary. I don't know what. Nobody can read our scores and all that stuff. But you started to explain, okay, it's very easy, just make a warm-up together, just play tunes together. You came and say, let's play a Basel march together, and everybody said, oh, an American is playing a Basel march from Switzerland, and oh, this guy is perfect, he's excellent, and all that stuff. And I remember this warm-up exercise down at the Rhine, where we're just standing there and just explaining, okay, let's make a warm-up together. And the guys, I watched the video 2 weeks ago, and if you look to the eyes of my conscripts, they were just dreaming. I've never seen an expressions in their eyes before. It was just, wow, we are playing with the unique old guard 5 and drum corps in Basel, and we are having fun. We are just playing together. And the second chance was in Virginia, definitely, when we played Joe 90 together. My guys were really burning to play this piece and wanted to learn all the details, play it fast and all that stuff, and it was just magic. It's just magic. And since then I started also to be more bridge builder to other nations and say, come on, let's play something together. Do you have scores? We have scores, and try to read these scores, and just or even if you can't read the scores, just try to follow me. I explain you a nice warm up exercises.
That's awesome. I could not begin to tell you how much of a dream come true. And Jeb and I have been to Fosnock many times. We've been to Basel many times. And to try to get through the bureaucratic monster that is the U.S. Army was, I mean, to see the red coats going through, Clara plots and all of that. I mean, it was just a powerful moment of unity, I think. And I'm going to hop to Jeb real quick because our friend Charles Canning from South Africa said, "Hey, you're playing that tune. I think you can do that on fife too." And you guys had kind of figured that out. Can you speak about that?
I'd have to think back and figure out which tune that exactly was. But one of the nice thing about the bagpipes and the fife is the hands look the same generally. So if I can see what they're playing on the pipes, I can figure it out within a few minutes, which is pretty exciting. And then writing it down, on musical score for other folks, and we can actually turn it on pretty quickly. But that was certainly a special moment with him and his group at Basel Tattoo in the cast bar. Just being able to play some of those tunes and watching the drummers to get together and figure it all out, in no time flat, and just make it all work. And I think that's kind of the magic of the whole thing, is because it shouldn't work. None of this should be possible with the way that bagpipes write their music, with all the ornaments and all the detail, and the way that traditional fife music looks. But somehow it just works. No different than the drum scores, between different styles of writing. They look completely different, but in the end, it's still a drummer with two drumsticks and a drum playing these beats. And I really think it's so special to share that back and forth, because that will certainly make a memory that lasts for a very long time.
Right. And I think the other part of this too is that, if you're having, like in Mo's instance, coming from Afghanistan, and I'm coming from Afghanistan, I'm going to get plopped right into the middle of this creative show process that I'm helping administer. I'm getting these people back and forth. And I remember when we were in Norway, in Oslo 2016, and we were at a burger place in downtown Oslo, and one of the really powerful things that happened was there was a guy that was there from Oslo, and he was asking what we were doing there, like, why are you there? And he said, just a whole bunch of you guys with kind of American accents, like, what's going on? So, well, we're here for this tattoo. And he's like, what's that? And so he explained it was this musical celebration festival. And he asked where we were from, obviously the States. And we said, well, we're part of the U.S. Army and we're musicians. And he was blown away that the U.S. military had something that, in his words, were something creative instead of something destructive. And that was a powerful moment for a lot of our people, that when they're doing the job, the day-to-day job, and they're putting on the uniform and they're doing the ceremonies, and that's a huge, huge honor. But obviously, some people get to a point where it becomes a job, because that's your 9 to 5 every single day. And when they heard that statement, it really hit home that they had a way to impact the world through music and through the military. And I think that's another big detail that is part of the tattoo world, is military musicians getting the chance to let their hair down and really enjoy the moment of playing for other military musicians, representing their own country, representing their own heritage, their own story. I mean, where else do you get the opportunity to do that? And I talked to Mo and Philip about this quite a bit, and Jeb and I, we've traveled enough to see it, where people who get into the rut of having a job, and this is one of those beautiful respites where you get appreciated for the level of excellence that you put into that job. So with that, definitely want to hop into a conversation here real quick to kind of round out the hour. But specific years and shows that kind of have hit you, whether it was a finale performance or some kind of big memorable moment. What show and maybe what year would be the biggest one for you, Jim?
Well, it probably would be the finale at the Edinburgh Tattoo in '96, on the Saturday night that was the fireworks display. And we turned around during the show, everyone turns around, looks at the castle so they can watch the fireworks. the director of music, who was Colonel Price, who unfortunately is not with us anymore, he got off the podium, came over while it was dark, while the fireworks were going off. He stood there next to me. And that was my 30th year in the Army on that night. And so I thought, man, this is kind of cool to celebrate it this way, you know? Then the other one, I got a quick one, is when we were in Australia on the Brisbane tattoo. This was the first time we were out there doing the show and so forth. And we had monitors in the dressing room. You could see the whole show going on. You know, it's very cool. Never seen that before. I was not in the room. I was backstage like the drum major is supposed to be. I got ready for the finale and I had about 3 people in the file ready to go instead of 30. And so I had to just tell them, don't go, I'll go out myself. So I went out in front of the New Zealand Army band. They had white coats on too. I looked like I was just a normal guy. But I came back and the colonel had everybody in that room and we never missed another performance like that.
Wow, incredible. Philip, can you share with me a favorite moment?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of favorite moments of myself. I was crying a lot of times on the Esplanade, and it was always a good sign for me when I was just standing there, a very proud drum major, and all the ambiance around, and it was so. I was just standing and crying, but. One very special moment, and I have to mention, and I hope the director of music from the Basel Tattoo, Christoph Walzer, will excuse me for this story, was the Basel Tattoo 2015. In this finale, of course, every band, I was senior drum major and every band was marching on for the finale, and we were stopping there, and then it was the part from the director of music to enter on the podium and conduct through the finale. And then we were standing there. I was happy. Okay, everything is fine now. It's 20 minutes break until we march out. But then I heard the voice from the producer, from Eric Julia, on my left ear. I heard a voice saying, "Philip Ritchie, please go on the podium and start the finale." And then I said to myself, "Oh, Philip, that's not your job, because there's a conductor of music." But then I realized, oh, the conductor of music is not on the podium. So I said, okay, let's do it. I was just marching on the podium, watching the first row of the trombones. They were just looking at me and said, huh, that's the wrong conductor, but this time, let's see. And I just had some seconds to realize, okay, which music is going on, how we are starting, in which bar are we, what's the tempo and all that stuff. Then I said to myself, I think there was a singer in the first song. I looked to my right and there was a singer. He was just staying there with his microphone, looking to me, let's do it. Okay, I lifted the instruments and we started the finale. And then during the first bars, the conductor was entering. Christoph was coming to me. And I think he tried to make like a small ceremony or something like this, but I was just happy to go as fast as possible down on the podium, because I knew there's the bagpipes will enter in some bars. And I had the experience from some years in advance when the conductor of music was not giving the nice cue for the bagpipes to start. And I had no idea where to start this, and I didn't want to destroy the finale. So my job was just starting the finale. I saw the conductor, went down back on my post. And then when I was standing there, I was just shaking, because I realized, whoa, what was going on? The story was very short told. The director of music was too late. He was giving a birthday concert for the father from the producer down backstage, and he was just too late on his post. So that's all. I'm still laughing about it, and also with Christoph we are laughing a lot, and it's a nice friendship with him. But it was definitely a very, very special moment. And since this year, since 2015, every finale, when I'm senior drum major, I'm just checking the scores for the first piece of the finale, because I've never checked it before. It was not my job, but since then I said, okay, just to be prepared, just in case you know what to do. So that was my special moment, 2015.
I love it. I love it. Jeb, what do you got?
Just thinking of some of the special performances, whether it be standing out there in Sydney in the huge football stadium there, 2010, just the sheer number of people on the field there, over 1,000, incredible. And then just one thought back to our Spirit of America that we used to do, which was all U.S. Army elements in there, and just having my parents up there in the stands, and just quite a special moment. And then one other thing from that same Spirit of America, when the Marines hymn would play, they would put the red lights on. And that's a very special moment, because red lights to me make me feel like I'm about to fall over. And a lot of my colleagues have had that same sensation. So it was always one of those things, whenever it was that time, you just had to really focus in to make sure that those red lights didn't get you, because it was just an incredible sense of vertigo immediately. They just clicked right on. So a lot of these very interesting moments that we all go through, like Philip just said, the show must go on, and you just never know what's going to happen. And that's kind of what makes this whole thing so interesting and special every single night.
Yeah, we'll have to do an episode recap with drum majors and fallouts and fallout procedures on the marks. That'll have to be another one, because I know each country has their own special tactic of replacing the soldiers who fall out on parade. So, unfortunately, it's one of those things. I remember going to London in 2015, and we had this conversation with the guards band captains and the folks who were there, and we were trading stories of people who have had legendary fallouts on the marks. And again, music is the international language, but falling out on a ceremony has certainly some international bridging as well. So Mo, what are some moments for you that stand out?
Bringing drummers from the household division to my home city, the Belfast Tattoo, in 2016. The Scots Guards are very privileged with their name and their reputation. They do a lot of travel. It doesn't really happen elsewhere within the division. So to bring 45 guys across from 4 of the 5 regiments was really special for me.
Wow.
2013 being the drum major at Edinburgh, every night that spotlight hit, I just couldn't believe my luck. I just couldn't. I was so blessed, until you're getting set for the finale and you had to learn to count, because if you weren't counting correctly, you were over the top of the conductor's podium. But for me, it would be Virginia 2015, and the entrance for the pipes and drums into the finale. Ross McCrindle and I had been discussing with Scott throughout the year, and I had suggested the tune of the Parting Glass. Won't bore everybody with it. Irish drinking song about, people passing on, and this is their last hurrah, pretty much. Now, I definitely knew that was my last year as the drum major of the 1st Battalion Scots Guards. I didn't know what else my career held afterwards, but I definitely knew that would be the last time I would get to do that in that specific appointment. So I suggested the Parting Glass. Scott Jackson, the producer, went for it, and we brought across Alan Bell. And he sings the first 2 phrases. Obviously, you can see it on YouTube. And then Bob Zabo turns around, strikes the pipes, spotlight comes on, and the pipes come in. And every night, guys, I was crying, because I knew that was it. But I also knew that was it on my terms. It was the piece of music that I had suggested. We had administrated everything you could. And for a non-musician to have that level of influence within a musical production, that got me every time. And then I got to stand next to your man there, and then that was it. Yeah, fantastic. Virginia Tattoo 2015, the Parting Glass.
Amazing. So I definitely, it's been a huge honor to chat with all of you about this topic. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for not only just being here today, but I mean, the passion that you've brought to a lifetime, a career of musical excellence, to ceremonial excellence, and inspiring the next generation of people. And Jim, thank you so much for your time here, being a part of this. It's beyond an honor to be on here with you. And when Mo and I were kind of talking about putting something like this together, and he brought your name up, I said, "Oh, we got to have Jim on here," and he would. I'm sure he would love it. So, Mo, thank you for bringing up that great idea, and Jim, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure, and I hope that you got something out of this, and the people that will see this will get something out of it.
Absolutely, and we will stay in contact and keep you in the loop on everything we're doing with the Washington tattoo.
That's great.
Philip, absolutely. Philip, you are a brother from another mother, and we have had so many incredible times together, and I am so looking forward to getting out of COVID and seeing it. You know, it always, what was David Lindbergh's statement? It all starts with a coffee, right?
With a coffee, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you so much for your friendship and your brotherhood. You're like family, and everything that you've done for me over the years, treating with your hospitality and just your graciousness. I just want to say thank you for everything.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was an honor, and I'm looking forward for Washington tattoo.
Awesome.
Go for it.
All right, awesome. And Jeb, thank you. We have a long road to go together still, working together every day, and we've got a lot of great things. I'm very much looking forward to your career continuing, and honestly, what you can keep doing and keep pushing. So I'm really proud of what you've been able to do, and thank you very much for your time.
Well, thanks for having me on this. It's good to see everyone. I can't wait to see everyone in person again soon, hopefully. And it's such an honor to be a part of this, and I can't wait to see where this all goes with this group, and then, you know, whoever else we meet along our travels.
Excellent. And Mo, don't even know where to begin. You and I have shared many incredible moments, some tragic moments, you know, bringing your background, my background together, your history of your family, my history of my family, you know, having Irish roots together. Seeing where the Irish music scene can go from the marching side of things. We definitely have a lot of work to do, a lot of really exciting things I know for the future, but I know that our paths and our web is woven really tightly, and I cannot wait to continue to work with you and see what we can do in the future. But I really just want to say thank you for your time today.
Mark, as always, it's a pleasure. Anything you need, you know where I am. And as the Jedi Master of this Share the Tradition group, keep sharing the tradition, my friend. Good luck with the tattoo, and God bless all of you.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. That'll do it for today. Greetings again, everyone. We just wanted to take a second to say thank you to Seif Studios for their creative media. If you want to find out more about Seif Studios, look them up on www.seifstudios.com. We'd also like to say thank you to our educational partner, ProLogix Percussion, American-made drum pads. They're doing a special discount code for our listeners today. So if you go to www.prologixpercussion.com and type in TWT20, you will receive 20% off your entire order. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and please check out our supporters.